All right, today while I was at the gym, I was on the treadmill and I was doing some pretty intense cardio, right? It's what I do every day at around 2 o'clock, 2 to 3 o'clock, because my schedule is kind of broken up into working on YouTube and then being at the gym for certain activities. And as I was sitting there looking around, because I get really bored, I started asking ChatGPT, why is it that certain people have to spend so much of their life alone? And then I looked at this girl that was mildly overweight, and then I looked across the room at another girl that was kind of big, and then I looked at another girl that was kind of big, and I was just like, you know what? All three of those girls could be the same girl, just with slightly different facial features, big hips, and tiny waists, but obviously not happy with their bodies, or else they would be somewhere else. And as I was getting ready to leave the gym, I asked the girl at the counter, I pointed up at one of the inspirational pictures and I said to her, you know, even if I live to be 1,000 years old, I will never look like that guy because my diet is crap. She's eating McDonald's at the desk, and yet she's like, yep, millennial sting. I don't think many of us have a chance at looking like that. She took another bite out of her hamburger. It's like, I like McDonald's way too much to sacrifice to look like that. And then I walked out. And I thought, you know, I've spent my entire life as a misfit. And I started to blame myself for the complete and total lack of engagement with others. But as I walked into the Kroger's, I saw my British cashier and she walked past me and I asked her because she looked like she was in a big hurry to go somewhere because breaks when you work in retail are sacred. So whether you're going out to smoke the left-handed or the right-handed thing, you're going to do one or the other. And then as I got approached the cashiers again, there's this Native American girl that always waves her hands at me. Like she gets really excited when she sees me. She walked up to her and I gave her a high five and then I asked her the question, why is there no ice today? And she just looked at me like, how am I supposed to know? I just work here. And then I asked her why everything I buy, like I bought a box of wine, a single serving box of wine today because for some reason I felt like drinking wine. I probably will regret that decision at about 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, but I did it anyway. So, in the second part of my monologue, I put this: I spent half my life at the university and I came out of it with less than nothing. And the university I spent half my life at is only a mile down the road from where I just was. And I think to myself, how could I spend half of my entire adult life at a place and still feel like I know no one? Like, I literally, right now, if I wanted to call someone from the university, I know no one. I haven't spoken to another person from the university, I believe, in 7 years. And it bothers me because the whole time I was there, you're surrounded by other people, by other students, right? And then suddenly you're not a student anymore. And you're out here in the real world where someone sounds like they're puking their guts out outside my front door right now. I hope I don't have to walk out there in my bare feet and step in that once I become severely inebriated. Anyhow, I'm getting being a little grossed out right now by hearing that. Someone gagging out there. So I have three talking points, and a lot of them have to do with isolation, struggles, and finding value in solitude. So let's get into talking point number one, since I've already wasted 25% of this video on rambling that on the ramblings of a syphilitic brain, right? Let's just call it that, leading to feelings of isolation even in social settings. It can be hard to find yourself in a world in which it doesn't value the way that you think. And even when you're at work or you're at the gym or just driving in your car and you're surrounded by other people in their promobiles and you feel the isolation. You feel like you're alone. You feel like there's no one else but you. And you have to carry around that feeling in the pit of your stomach all day long. Even when you're taking a number two, you're feeling it in your stomach, the isolation that you feel from the world. Because there's no one to call, there's no one to talk to, there's no one to do anything. You just accept the darkness like I have. I've been between running around today, I've just been sitting here in the dark staring at the screens, thinking about turning on my PlayStation 5 and then remembering of how much of my life I wasted sitting there in front of a simulated game thinking that I was so cool because I was good at a video game. All the 10 years that I played Call of Duty and nothing to show for it. All the years that I spent going mountain biking every single day only to watch your skills deteriorate as you don't keep them up. And that's life. You you get to this point in which you feel the cruel isolation. And I remember telling one of the other girls that works there at the gym last week, I think on Tuesday, that as we get older, we become much more isolated as we find people our own age more difficult to talk to because there's less of them. As you go through the journey of life, the older you get, the more of the people you used to know aren't there anymore, either because they've moved away or they've had a serious heart problem and they are in the Pine Box retirement community, even though they're younger than you are. It happens. People suddenly bite it for no good reason. I mean, you could be walking across the street and there's some drunk driver who's having that hell of a time in behind the seat and boom. You get hit by a car that sends you 200 feet into the air. And believe me, once you're up there, you have a lot to think about before you come down so quickly. I couldn't imagine. I was actually reading this morning in the Daily Mail that a woman got hit in an intersection so hard that she flew 200 feet in the air. And I would be up there myself thinking, wow, the view's amazing up here. But the second you reach the highest level of where you're enjoying the view after being smashed by a car so hard that he sent you up there, you're going to have to notice that you're going back down at an accelerated rate. And as you come back down to earth, you know that your time on earth is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter the closer you get to the ground, and then suddenly, boom, you explode into a giant puddle of goo. And there you have it, the end of millennial steam. But with those images in mind, let's go ahead and transition over to my second talking point. Their tendency to analyze, overthink, or bring up unconventional topics can make them seem distant, intense, or even weird. Distant. I've been called distant so many times in my life that I wear it as a badge of honor. Everywhere you go, you're distant. Nobody wants to call you the R word because it's not politically correct to use that word. And I'm not going to use it. Often I use it freely, but today, for some reason, it feels like it's in a cage. Like I can't access it. My fingers won't go inside the cage. The holes aren't big enough to get my hand in there to touch the R word. But you guys know what I'm thinking. And so you feel this distance from the world. And I've never felt it more than when I worked in retail. Because the customers walk in, they know what products they want to buy, but there's a middle-aged man there standing looking like he doesn't belong there, right? He's looking a little mystified, questioning why he's here. And this was every day that I had to work in a retail job. And the worst part is, I see the same look on the faces of the current workers. Even though it was 15 years ago that I worked at that same Kroger's, I still see the same faces on the employees looking around and thinking, what did I do to deserve this? The distance in their eyes almost seems like they're not even, there isn't a consciousness in there. Like I want to take my two fingers and poke them in the eyes and make certain that that distance isn't them just zoning out of reality and that I acknowledge the fact that they're another human being. But sometimes the intense nature of meeting people, like Gen Zero, he's extremely intense about the things that he likes, and it sometimes it frightens me. Like I'll be talking to him, and suddenly he'll get really serious about something that absolutely doesn't matter. And then I'll look at him like, you know what? Damn, this boy ain't right. That's my first thought. The first day that I met Gen Zero, I was like, the boy ain't right. And since then, he's just not gotten much more right. But the intense nature in which he discusses certain aspects of his life, especially video games, it does make it seem like he's a very weird person. And I myself, I've been told many times that I don't belong working in the job that I currently have because it's full of weirdos. Technology is full of people who have spent too much time with a one eyed snake in a room in which they have never even smelled a lady. And the reason for that is because you have to be of that mind. You have to have an analytical mind. You have to bring up unconventional topics. Every time I have one of these weird adult nerds that comes into my office, they come in and you're just like, there's something off about this person. This person may be 40 years old. He may be divorced 3 times, but there's definitely something wrong when they open their mouth and they start talking about something that you're just like, okay, well, Star Trek is great, and I'm sure that you enjoyed it a lot and that you spent a lot of your time looking at the Star Trek women. Well, uh, let's leave it to your imagination doing things inside of your pants. But they're odd. So, to others, making friendship is harder to maintain. And this is something that I've noticed about the entire technology community for my entire life is they're not like normal people. And every once in a while you'll get one of these really strange people. And I was just telling one of my other coworkers that was visiting the office on Wednesday that this guy, my current Gen Zero, uh, has a lot to of the same almost facial qualities of the first senior manager that I ever had when I started working at this corporation. That intense nature, the distance, the odd behavior, the need to feel like they're in control of every situation. And you're just like, this makes you very, very odd. And I mean, I would never ever in 100 years associate with either the senior manager or this guy or Gen Zero outside of work. I mean, I pretty much kept my distance even at work from these people because they were so odd. And that's the way I feel that people treat me is that you're introverted. People see you as being introverted. You're socially awkward, and sometimes you just don't know what to say. Sometimes I'll be standing there, and Gen Zero will just fart. Just somehow, I'll just be standing there, and suddenly I'll just hear a random toot in the office. Oh, by the way, at minute 8:30 yesterday in my video, someone pointed out the fact that you can hear a full blown ghost cat meow in the back of my video. I have no there I don't like animals, so there are no animals in my house, and yet there's a full-blown meow in the video. So thank you for pointing that out to me because that was astonishing. That's something I should send to one of those compilation videos because I'm literally sitting here talking and suddenly there's a quiet pause and something that I'm talking about, and you can hear it clear as day, meow, and you're like the person who asked, it's like, is that a bird or a cat? And I had to go back and listen to it a few times, and it is clear as hell that there is a ghost cat in my house, which I'm not surprised because I keep finding pet hair everywhere on the floor. All right, moving on to our final talking point for today. emphasize the importance of self acceptance, embracing solitude as a source of strength, even if it means having no friends. Well, you know what they say when a guy is sitting alone in his room and he's shaking hands with the governor while he's watching anime, you've reached a low point in your life that you cannot undo. When someone tells you that their hands are in their pants while they watch anime, there's a certain line that you cross, I think, to look at that kind of cartoon while you give yourself the time. And despite the loneliness, many deep thinkers find a sense of fulfillment in their introspection and view their unique perspective as something good. And I'll tell you, if you are doing that, I'm going to bring this up again in this video. If you have a body pillow with an anime character on it, and you think that somehow a woman's going to walk into your life and not tell you that that is strange, you, you are not living in reality. In fact, A from the stream has asked me a few times if I've gotten my body pillow. And the fact is, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to get a body pillow for all the reasons that I've just mentioned. You know, solitude is a tough nut. I'll tell you this much having spent my entire life alone is a very hard thing to come to terms because you get to a point, especially as a younger man, where you start questioning whether or not you can accept living in complete isolation. If living in the hole your whole life is really worth doing. Because, at least in the documentations that I've seen, and I saw this on Vice News, when they put young men into isolation, it instantly started causing severe mental problems. If you guys really want to watch something super intense about this, go on YouTube and look up the Russian sleep study. It is a chilling creepy pasta, but this goes to show what happens to people when they spend too much time in extreme isolation that is not within their control. Even though I may have seen people today, I still feel completely alone. Like, I don't feel like I fit into society in any conceivable way. And it is normal to spend your entire life alone. Like, the only time I probably would leave my house during the week if I didn't have a normal job is just to go to the gym in the morning and then ride my bike back from the gym, stop at the Kroger's, and then come home and then just sit here in the dark and wait for the next day. And that's actually what I did for like 600 days during the pandemic is I just sat and I sat and I sat thinking about nothing, thinking about the abyss, thinking about how there were no jobs, how I felt like my situation was unique to me, that what was happening to me during that time was self inflicted, like I had done something to make the isolation as dark as humanly possible. But human beings don't function well in extreme isolation. So that's why you have to change the narrative in your head. Sometimes you have conversations with yourself in your dreams and you talk to yourself because there is no one else to talk to. If you don't talk to yourself, no one else is going to talk to you. And therefore you develop a coping message of just talking to yourself. I never understood this, but I see this in Gen Zero at work as well. He spends a lot of his day just talking to himself. And I used to find it odd, right? Until I realized, you know what? I do the same thing, but when no one's looking. I would never actively participate in that behavior in which I could be criticized for it. But there's a lot of very autistic things that he does during the day, and I just have to watch them and kind of just look at those things that he does and hope that I will stop doing the same things because When you see a person that has a lot of the same problems that you do, but you never notice them because no one was putting them on display in front of you, you were just doing them without noticing, you really start to notice those things and you start not liking seeing those things in yourself.